Welcome to my channel Limelight Leaks. Please share and subscribe and hit the bell icon for new updates.
I wanted to try and use both electric guitar playing and acoustic guitar playing and blues playing, just to give an overall sort of he's the amazing guitar player of Led Zeppelin, the guy who made some oft most powerful sounds in rock music history, but behind all the fame and mystery, Jimmy Page carries hurt feelings from the past, pain, anger, and massive problems with women in the music business who dared to fight back, make fun of or hurt him. This isn't just a list of music fights. These are deep cuts in the heart of a man who once soared the stage with a guitar like ass. And first on that angry list stands Stevie Nicks. She had the charm, the good looks, the scratch of voice that was full of mystery, and Sheck knew it. Stevie and Jimmy met more than once in the crazy late 70s rock world, but something between them never worked out. People say that Jimmy once asked her to work together, only to be coldly turned down. Stevie supposedly said Zeppelin's style was too big and showing off. Words that really hurt. For a man who lived for loud music, her insult felt like betrayal. And it wasn't just words. At a private music business party, Stevie reportedly refused to share a stage with him during an all-star jam, saying she didn't want to be drowned in testosterone. Page was shocked, embarrassed. That moment stuck with him like a thorn under his skin, and from that point on she was no longer just a peer. She was a ghost in the room, someone he would never forgive. Then came Debbie Harry with her punk attitude and pop-mixed rebellion. Blondie's Rizzy had shaken up the music business, and Page, who loved his blues rock music, saw something scary in her sharp, cool style. Debbie had once made fun of Zeppelin as old dinosaurs dragging their guitar solos through a dying decade. When Page heard those words, it wasn't just ego that hurt, it was his pride. They met briefly in New York. It was a cold meeting. She smiled, nodded, but the tension was electric. Jimmy never forgot how icily she threw away the time period he built. Her icy booty, her fearless tongue. It wastes kind of hate that didn't just hurt, it turned into anger. Not far behind her in that storm of hate came Chrissy Hind, leader of the Pretendos. Chrissy was the perfect example of bold strength. Sharp-tongued, iron-willed, and allergic to praise. She never softened her hits, especially not for men like Jimmy Page. In one now famous interview, she easily destroyed Led Zeppelin's song words, calling them gross fantasies for amateur boys. Page read the quote twice, hoping he'd misunderstood, but there it was, in print. Mean and harsh. After working with somebody you know is immediately recognizable as Robert, I needed somebody with that, strength of vocal character of their own. It wasn't just a criticism of a few lines, it was a rejection of his entire world. What made it worse was Chrissy's place in Theric world. She wasn't just some outsider throwing rocks. She was respected, and she used her platform to talk him down with the exactness of Acnith. It wasn't rebellion. It was destruction. When they met backstage at a major festival, Jimmy hoped for politeness, perhaps even a moment of making peace instead. She walked past him like he didn't exist. No nod, no look. The air froze. It was planned, on purpose. He wasn't just being ignored, he was being jurist to have his entire legacy made into background noise by some enough level. It crushed something in him. That moment stayed in the back of his mind like feedback from a broken amp, constant, annoying, impossible, taught out. He had built a sound empire, changed the very heart of rock. And yet, in Chrissy's cold silence, he felt like nothing more than a nobody. It wasn't anger he felt. It was heartbreak. It waste pain of being dismissed by someone whose respect might have meant something. It haunted him, coming back whenever he heard her name, whenever a Pretender's song played in the that scar didn't bleed, it never stopped hurting. And a unforgettable fight came with Patti Smith. They should have been friends, both poetic, both dark, both lost in the mystical currents of rock and books. They both saw music as more than noise. But while Jimmy created spells with his guitar, weaving occult symbols into soundscapes, Patti rolled her eyes. To her his mysticism wasn't. It was theater, costume, fake. She famously dismissed Zeppelin's spiritual leanings as cheap magic tricks for stadium kids. Page, who had spent years of his life studying the occult, the tarot, the dark spiritual corners of art, took her words like Acnith to the chest. His beliefs weren't an actor, they were sacred. She hadn't just criticized his stage persona, she'd made fun of his faith. The foundation beneath this sound world. Their single in-person fight was brief but unforgettable. At a record release party in London, the air was thick with incense, tension, and ego. Jimmy walked up to her, maybe out of curiosity, maybe to extend a peace offering. Shell looked him in the eye and smirked, saying, "Oh, the wizard arrives," before turning and walking away without waiting for a reply. The room fell silent, Pajosted frozen. It wasn't pride that kept them from following her. It was the kind of hurt that sinks beneath the skin. He had let her see the part of him he protected most. The seeker, the mystic. The boy still searching for magic in Abracan world, and she had laughed. After that he avoided her name, her records, even her presence at events. Not because he feared her, but because the wound hadn't healed. In her, he had seen a potential friend. In her mockery, he found one of the most painful betrayals of his artistic soul. To Patty, he was the host of a crumbling rock empire. To Jimmy, she became the voice of every person who had ever said he was just a fake. And that voice still echoed long after the guitars had fallen silent. And finally, perhaps the mass and lasting wound came from Courtney Love. She was chaos in human form. Raw, loud, unapologetic, a walking contradiction of beauty and Jimmy had once admired her from a distance, drawn to her raw magnetism. Her refusal to bow to rules, terrible honesty mixed with poison. She reminded him of everything dangerous and exceeding about rock and roll, but also everything that could destroy. Its admiration turned sour quickly the day she unleashed one of the most brutal public attacks he had ever faced. On a talk show with a sneer, she dismissed Led Zeppelin as the sound of bloated egos masturbating on vinyl. It wasn't just a line, it was an explosion. The quote spread like wildfire, shared andro-printed, burned into headlines and backstages alike. It wasn't criticism, that it was character assassination. Page, who rarely responded to insults or gossip, felt something inside him cracked. This wasn't about disagreeing on musical styles, this was personal. It was mean. It cut to the heart of what he had built, what he had given up for high art in Courtney's eyes. It was all meaningless noise. To be so completely made fun of by someone he once respected felt like a betrayal of hug. He never responded, never publicly acknowledged the insult. But in private circles, his silence spoke louder than words. His friends saw Thetchins, the way his face got dark when her name came up, the way he stopped defending the old days, stopped about the glory. Courtney wasn't just another critic. She became a symbol of everything that mocked, dismissed, and tore down what he had spent his life creating. And Jimmy Page, a man who could survive heroin, heartbreak, and the chaos of fame. Courtney Love, an enemy heckled and shake. Because when a legend sees his legacy laughed at, it doesn't end in argument, it ends in silence. In bitterness buried so deep it becomes part of the myth. In quiet burning anger that lingers long after themes have cooled and the lights have gone down. Jimmy Page didn't hate Cicely, but when he did, it was a slow burning fire that never truly went out. The sting wasn't in competition. It wasn't ridicule in the way these women didn't just challenge him, but sliced through his mythos with sharp words, cold dismissals, and unapologetic. These weren't arguments between peers. They were emotional crashes where pride was shattered and respect turned into. For someone who had lived like a rock god floating above the mess, it was the unexpected hits that hurt deepest. Page didn't always react in the moment. He let the memories sit, linger. He let the silence carry what his voice never said. And through time, those meetings hardened into scars. Scars he never showed publicly, but ones that taunted his every chord. And just like his music, his grudges don't fade. They echo in every thunderous riff, in every aching silence between verses, in the shadowed corners of rock history where mythology meets the bitter truth of human fragility. Page built walls of sound, but behind them were stories he never dared to write into lyrics. Stories like these.